Hello, I'm Sally Pointer. I'm currently at a Stone Age event and I decided that my crazy hair needed a new comb. So I'm going to take inspiration from some combs found in archaeological Neolithic sites and make myself one to hopefully keep the snarls out of things. Neolithic woodlands were largely managed. People have been living in the area for a very long time, and there are plenty of materials that have a lot of uses. This, for example, is hazel. You'll be familiar with hazelnuts, and it can be coppiced, lots of straight stems for lots of different things. But I'm looking for a slightly different species today for my comb. Now this is exactly what I was looking for. This is a species of Viburnum, and here in the Netherlands, where I am today, it does tend to be fairly common, and it grows a little bit more wildly than the stuff I have access to in my hedges back in England, which means I'm going to find some larger stems. Now, what I'm after aren't very thin bits. You might think that's good for a comb. I actually want bits that are thick enough to split. I think this piece will be about perfect. So it's a year's growth, and if we have a look at the end, can you see there's still a little bit of pith in the middle? What I want to try and do is split this into quarters. So we're going to be peeling it, then cutting it across there and across there. That's going to give me 4 sections, which should make into a nice stable comb. I think there's enough here. I can always come and pick more if I need to. No point taking more unless it's absolutely necessary. First job, peel off the bark. A nice sharp flint flake is perfect for this. I need to split this, so what I'm going to try and do is use the same flake that I peeled it with, and I'm going to get it into the middle, and then what I need to do is attempt to keep the split going evenly. Now, I don't use Viburnum much, so there is a little bit of practice to it. It is a case of pulling a little bit towards the direction you want the split to go. That's really good. And then once I've split this piece, I'm going to split it again in the other direction to give me 4 quarters. And then I think I'm going to need to let them dry for an hour or 2 before I assemble the comb. I think it needs to be bent green, but I don't want it so soggy that we get a lot of shrinkage afterwards. This is going really well. I was half expecting I was going to need 2 goes at this, but we're all right. And then this is the second section, which isn't going so well. I'm going to move to a block, and I'm going to use the point of my knife, and I'm going to see whether this one is better cut. And perhaps this one is better cut. I can join the dots in a moment. Oh, that's flint flakes flaking off. Yeah, I'm going to have to work on this, but that's what we're aiming for. We need 4 sections. I'm going to get a blade in there and finish running it through. So having split my Viburnum stick into quarters, I now need to round each part. I'm just going to pop that one down. And I can do that either with a really nicely finished flint knife, or I've got a flake here. And all I'm going to do is scrape it, and the fibres come away quite nicely on this. I'm not aiming for totally round, that would be an option. I just want the edges rounded so they don't scrape into my skin. And what I'm noticing is that as this dries, there's a twist developing in it. So I am going to let the finished sticks dry completely, and then I'll soak them before we make them into a comb. Nothing about this is difficult, it's just going to take a little bit of time to get the edges rounded off. These are all roughly scraped. Doesn't matter that some are short bits and some are long bits, because I'm going to need different length sections when I put it together. This is going to be a really simple one. I'm going to use 1 pair of braces, and I'm going to make some twine to hold it together. So the first thing I need to do is make some really fine cordage while these dry. I'm being very impatient to try this, so I've made some cordage. These have had an hour in the sun. It might not be enough, but I'm going to soak them, try it out, and we'll see how it goes. I can always make another one. These have soaked for about an hour now, and I'm hoping that's going to make them flexible enough to bend round into a curve. I'm not going to worry too much about the final lengths. I'm just going to bend them round in order, and we'll see what happens. That's the first couple bent. I'm getting some splitting at the top, which is probably my fault, but that's okay. We'll call this one a trial run and see what happens. So far so good. The cracking got less as the curve got less acute, which makes perfect sense. So whether I need to dry more to start with and then soak for longer, or whether I needed to warm it up over a fire, not sure. I think it's going to work. Now what I need to do is lash this together, and yeah, I'm going to do that with a couple of sticks on each side and a binding thread, and then I'll worry about finishing the ends. I could do with an extra pair of hands about now. So that's my first try, and I have just used some simple twining. I think the spacing is too wide on that, so I'm going to undo that and do it again, but with two spokes together in each section of the twining. Let's try that. This version has worked a lot better. On the originals we often see cross braces, which I've tied in, and then I've put some twining between every two. This is not pretty, but I'm going to finish it, I'm going to learn from it, and then I'm going to do it again and try and get it right. All right, it is technically a comb. It's a very messy comb. I can definitely do better, but I've learned a lot putting that one together, so I'm going to go and pick some more Viburnum and have another go. Version 2, this time I have gone for much thicker and more mature stems. You see there's not that much pith in the middle, is meaning that they're a lot harder to split, but I've got more wood to make what is going to be essentially doweling out of. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. I will pick the camera up again at interesting points, but I am just going to split them, whittle them sub-round and set them to dry. I've just tried a little experiment which I'm hoping to replicate with these elements. I've pretty much cut them to length so they're gradated. I've more or less rounded the ends. I was going to let them dry overnight, but I just put a spare one onto the campfire for a few seconds and it bent okay. So I'm going to give these a good soak. We're going to try it, hope for the best, and if it doesn't go, then I can always carve some more sticks. Alright, so these are the wet sticks. They are going on a campfire where some loom weights are also being done. I don't think they're going to need very long. I don't want the wood to start singeing. Oh gosh, that's hot. And okay, I think any second now I'm going to take them off and try bending them. Okay, that's not bad. A little tiny bit of splintering, but nothing that can't be trimmed off. Still a bit rushed, but that is better, and I can trim away those sticky up bits. Let's try comb number 2. This one is a lot better. I've got to trim it. This is tied together very, very roughly at the moment, and I'm going to make some very thin linen cord while that sets, and I'm going to use that to replace the lashings. I think we may have got there, in principle at least. So here it is. This is the second version. It is still not the tidiest bit of woodwork that you will ever see, but I am a lot happier with it. And the important thing now is to try it out. So off goes the hairnet, because lady with bag on her head is a really good look. And well, that works. That is the tidiest that my hair has been all week. I think there's a few more of these in my future, hopefully with my woodworking skills improving as I go and taking inspiration from Neolithic examples.